Welcome to the Zero Gravity Production video series. In this edition, we'll be assembling, testing, and troubleshooting a mini zero gravity shade. The items needed for assembly are a 1.5-inch tube with attached fabric, the end plug, the spline, a stapler, scissors, the dual-face bottom rail, the bottom rail end caps, the gearbox, the correct spring motor, either the AR, which is the light spring motor, the HR, which is the medium spring motor, or the BR, which is the heavy spring motor, a sun-boss bracket, the metal lock pin, a screwdriver, and a non-marring hammer. Additional items that may be needed are 10-inch weights and painter's tape or masking tape. Attaching the dual-face bottom rail. Install the end plug into the tube. Gently tap with a hammer. If assembling the bottom rail with the round face on the front of the shade, apply the spline to the back face of the fabric. If assembling the bottom rail with the flat face on the front of the shade, like in this example, apply the spline to the front face of the fabric. Peel the adhesive from the spline and attach it to the fabric's lower edge by gently laying the spline onto the fabric. Then apply pressure. Secure further in multiple places with staples. Press the staples flat. Trim the excess spline. Fold the fabric over the spline. Then insert the fabric with spline into the dual-face bottom rail. Avoid moving the fabric during this process, only move the bottom rail. Reading the spring chart. Use the mini zero gravity spring chart to determine the number of spring motors to be used and the pre-turns needed. Make sure the correct fabric weight and tube size have been selected. In this example, a 14 ounce per square yard fabric weight is being used with a 1.5-inch tube. The spring motor or motors and the number of pre-turns are based on the height of the shade in inches. From the chart, select the shade width. Move down the chart until it intersects with the shade height. In this case, the shade is 18 inches wide and 36 inches long and uses an HR motor. The far left column shows the maximum number of pre-turns that can be applied to the motor. In this example, a maximum of 10 pre-turns is required. If there is a number in front of the spring motor, this is the number of spring motors to be connected to the gearbox. For example, 2HR means 2 HR spring motors. 2HR plus AR means 2 HR spring motors and 1 AR spring motor. Assembly. Once a spring motor has been selected, couple it together with the gearbox. If the spring chart shows you need to use more than one spring motor, assemble the first spring motor to the gearbox, then add the second, connecting the 2 spring motors to complete. Insert the gearbox and spring motor combination into the tube. Line the gearbox up to the spline in the tube for full insertion. The mini zero gravity spring motor is always assembled on the left side for standard roll. For reverse roll, the spring motor must be assembled on the right side. There are 2 ways to set the spring motor, using a bracket or using the hanging station. Setting the spring motor using a bracket. Confirm the number of pre-turns needed using the chart provided. Attach the sun-boss bracket to the gearbox head. Hold the spring body in one hand and the bracket in the other. Turning clockwise, apply the correct number of turns. When the number of turns has been reached, line up the holes in the gearbox and the adapter. Insert the metal lock pin. This will prevent losing any pre-turns. Then remove the bracket. Setting the spring motor using the hanging station. Install the shade. Wrap paper or scrap fabric around the shade for protection. Confirm the number of pre-turns needed using the chart provided. Apply the pre-turns by rolling the tube counterclockwise, following the number of turns on the spring chart. Testing. Check the shade to make sure it is working properly. Pull the bottom rail down and release. The shade should not move and should stay in any position. Troubleshooting. If the shade is not working as desired, make sure the proper spring chart was used. Double check the fabric weight. and make sure the dual-face bottom rail was used. Using a different bottom rail can compromise the shade operation. Also, check the width of the light gap. When dealing with a smaller light gap, like when the roller shade will be used in a cassette, more pre-turns may be needed. If troubleshooting confirms it is not one of those issues, try the following steps. If the bottom rail continues to move down, more turns need to be applied until the motion stops. If the bottom rail moves up, it may be necessary to add more weight to the bottom rail. Follow the extra weight chart at the bottom of the spring chart page. When adjusting the position for shades narrower than 26 inches, use one 10-inch weight in the center of the bottom rail. For shades wider than 26 inches, use two 10-inch weights, one on either side of the bottom rail. If necessary, return one or more turns clockwise and check the shade again. Insert the end caps into the bottom rail and gently tap with a hammer. Insert the metal lock pin into the gearbox head to prevent losing any pre-turns. Then remove the shade. If the shade will be shipped as open roll, secure the metal lock pin with painter's tape or masking tape. Note: installation instructions should be sent with every mini zero-gravity shade. Include the number of turns needed to reset the shade should it lose its tension and freight. Thank you for watching the Zero Gravity production video series. For more information and to watch additional videos, please visit our website.